Like if I say something stupid, you can take that.
I could take it out. Yeah, I could do that.
Okay.
You just recorded some good B-roll for me, by the way. Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
Make me look good, son.
I will. Hello, Uncuffed Nation. I am super excited to bring you the other half of the equation from last week's conversation. I have Donna Euler with me. She is the wife of Skip Euler, who you got to talk to last time. And she agreed to be part of this podcast. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. But the dream team is here.
The dream team.
That's right, the dream team. Donna is actually the lead administrator, head, the true boss here at Hope Community Church. And she is my spiritual mother. She is the spiritual grandparent to our kids, and they love their Mia.
I love them.
So I can only say without a shadow of doubt that this woman knows what she's talking about. And she's going to bring a lot of wisdom to this. Now, let me just preface this conversation. It is a lot easier to ask a man how to be a good husband and father, but asking a woman what it is to be a good wife and mother is a totally different realm for me. So
for you? Okay.
So as much as you are nervous about being on this podcast, yes. I'm going to say I'm equally as nervous, if not more so, treading into these waters because it is very easy to get canceled over this. But I'm going to try my best. Guys, I'm going to try my best for us to get to the root of this.
All right,
and ladies, if you're watching, this woman here has a wealth of knowledge, and she brings an even mindset to it. And also, she's very much a person that's real. I can definitely say that in the conversations that we have together outside of this, you never approach things from a superficial standpoint, which is very, very rewarding for me as your spiritual son. And I know my wife appreciates that. Kendra says that all the time. So
I don't know about all the time. But
so I'm hoping that everyone here can get a sense of that now. So let's just jump into it, shall we?
Let's jump.
All right. What would you say are the qualities of a good marriage?
Okay. I did do some thinking on that one, but it's actually kind of easy. Now, just a little backup. I don't know what all Skip has said, but, we've been married for almost 32 years, so it helps. We're in a different season from a lot of other people, but just looking at everything so far, communication is like top for me, being a woman. That and listening are two things that if you can get that right with each other, it puts everything else into place. It really, really does. Lack of communication, you're wondering what each other, what you're thinking or how you're going to handle something. But if you have a communication, it's not always easy. But if you have that and the other person is actually listening, like if your spouse is listening and getting into what you're saying, not just a superficial listening, like, okay, I'm looking at you, but I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I got laundry I got to do. And oh, geez, we got to pick up the kids in 10 minutes, that kind of stuff. If it's actual, like, I hear you, and that is the eye contact, that to me, if someone is talking to me, I want them to be looking at me, and vice versa. I will look at you because I want you to know that you have my full attention.
That's good.
So those are huge for me.
So what I almost heard there was almost a sense of curiosity about what's being conveyed in that message.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because sometimes things are not just, black and white, like this is the way it is. You just kind of look at them and do that. With communication, it's ask that question if you're not clear. Like, okay, wait a minute. So So what you mean is, and then it can be a no, not that at all. Or yes, exactly. And then you know you're on the same page.
I like that because I can definitely say that a lot of the misunderstandings that my wife and I have do stem from either me saying, "What did you say?" or not hearing her at all, to be honest. But just, you know, one of us either not being curious enough about what the other person is really trying to communicate and not diving deep enough. It's typically me. But so how can we as spouses then, you know, develop that a little bit? Because I feel like active listening, especially with your spouse, seems like it's an art form. It's a skill that you have to learn. So how can we begin that process without making the other person feel like we're trying to trick them or we're trying to just, you know, like work them over, if that makes any sense? Right.
Okay. Well, I think that is also communication because, Skip and I have had this conversation. His great family growing up, but there was no communication. It was everything's fine. Everything's fine. Me growing up, like, oh no, we're going to talk about this because this can't go, it has to be finished. So bringing both of those into our marriage, at first, you know, everything's la-di-da and everything's, butterflies and, you know. But as you're together on a daily basis and you start seeing personalities, you see a lot more personality when you're married. Those are okay, you have to figure out what's important to you, and you have to be able to literally say that to your wife or your husband and say, okay, look, I don't know exactly how to say this, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way, or, you know, whatever it may be. But it is be intentional. I should have led that off as a quality, because that is something Skip and I have seen with the marriage groups that we've been doing over the years. Oh my gosh, if you can be intentional. So that would be intentional, like, okay, Kendra, I really need to sit down and talk to you about this. And it's just a flat out conversation. Be gentle, and especially when you start knowing your spouse's personality. If you know that you can't just come out and say, look, this really bothers me about you. And maybe not say it that way, you know, just that's a thing too, tone. Hey, I really think we just need to sit down for a second because there's some things that have been going through my mind or that I've been feeling, and I need to let you know. And if you can start there, once you get past all those little weird feelings, like, oh, you hurt my feelings or something like that, then you realize I'm not out to get you.
Exactly.
I'm in it with you. And for this to keep going and be great, we got to get these little things right. And that's going to be your entire marriage. It's not like, oh, once we're married 10 years, you know, we got it all figured out. No, it's not like that at all. It is a constant learning, communicating, being intentional. That is the word, intentional.
I like that. that sort of resonates with what Skip said last week. And it's funny you say that because I've been approaching, so I'm typically the type of person who doesn't show their feelings, right? Okay. I will let things build up. And as an Enneagram 5, I like to turn things into logic. So my emotions to me are illogical at best. Why then would I allow them to control the way that I behave? Right. And I also come from a family that addresses things head on. So that has been my mantra. If it needs to be dealt with, we deal with it. And not bringing emotions into it, but just saying, let's just deal with this. My wife, however, comes from a different kind of family where things are typically kind of just put under the rug. Okay. And when things are addressed, there are heightened emotions that come along with that. So communicating to her for me early on was really difficult because I would always wonder, why is she upset? Why is she mad? We're just talking this out. And then I also realized later on, the way I communicate what I needed was in a way that she didn't understand because I didn't bring emotion to it.
Okay.
I would just say, hey, this is what I want, or this, but there was nothing for her to say, okay, I can attach a frame of reference via emotions to what my husband's really needing. So now when I communicate something that I want or I need, I will first say, this is what was communicated, or this is what was done. This is what I perceive from it. And this is then what my emotion.
Right.
Gosh, I hate that. And this is how it emotionally affected me.
Right.
And that has been so rewarding for us because now she can attach the way that she communicates, which is via emotions, to something that is illogical.
Get over it.
Right? Well, you know, but again, I do have emotions and I do want to acknowledge that. But again, my personality always says tamp it down.
Right. Because
growing up, that's how I was taught.
Okay.
You put your emotions to the side and you just do what you need to do. Right. But I have to communicate to my wife via emotions so that she can attach action to that emotion. And that took a long time. I mean, we're almost in year 11 and this is just now something that I'm starting to do. So I can definitely.
But you're doing it. And you're intentional about it, and you both know that about each other now. You didn't when you were married for 3 years.
Yeah.
You're just going through a process. So, and I know, like, one thing with Skip and my temper can flare very quickly. I know, shocker, right? But the thing that Skip and I, because of communication, I'm like, I need time. He knew something was wrong, and it was, but I would say nothing. He'd say, what's wrong? Nothing. Something's wrong, but I couldn't deal with it right then. I'm a processor, and I also know enough about myself that I don't want this to open before I have a chance to do this, because some not so nice things can come out. And that's taken some time to learn, but he also knows that. So now if I just say nothing, he'll be like, okay, walk away. But he knows that that's kind of like a cue for him. Okay, leave her alone for a while. She'll let me know when she's ready. Or if it's been a few hours, he'll come back to me and say, are you ready to talk now? And usually I am. So that's something, because of communication and back to intentional, that we have learned and processed through the years.
I need to get better at that because I don't let that go. I'll be honest about that. When Kendra is showing signs of stress, my knee jerk is to fix it, to go to dive into it, because I'm not afraid of it, right? I'm not afraid of what her emotional.
But she is.
I know she is.
So.
And the funny thing is that I'm realizing now is that a lot of the times when I think she's upset with me, she's actually upset with something else. But when I jump into it, she now attaches that negative emotion to me. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I did it again.
Right.
And it's like, when am I going to learn my lesson?
Right.
But I'm so driven to see my wife happy. That I feel like sometimes I drive her to madness in my pursuit of trying to make her happy.
Right. But you're learning. You're learning her. Like, okay, this is the way she works. And in a good marriage, that's what you're doing. You're trying to, what makes her happy? What are her, I don't want to say emotional needs, but what keeps her at that level where life is good, like she's in good mood, and the kids are doing great, and just, okay. And when you find those things, then you tend to want to do more, because actually it starts keeping peace in the family, because when mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, right? Saying, right?
That is true.
And sadly, it's true, because a mom can make life miserable for the family if she has too much going on, and then, you know what I mean?
I do.
So anyway, so knowing her, and then in reverse, her knowing you, she knows now it's very important for you to fix it or to finalize it. Okay, I know something's wrong with you. Let me help you. So then she is learning that about you, and hopefully that will start, oh, okay, this is how he works. This is how he operates. So I need to be okay with that. Because if you start doing serving, we were having a little discussion earlier, if you start putting the other person first, your spouse, it's going to, it makes life great, because then okay, it might be a little weird at first, like, oh, okay, she wants to go take a walk, really? But you do, and then you start realizing, you know what? She's happy, and now I'm happy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this is great, because now we're both enjoying the same thing.
Dual
and that's just
fulfillment.
an example.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah.
I like that a lot. So talking about a happy wife, we'll turn this into a different kind of question now. What, in your opinion, then, are the qualities of a good wife?
Knowing when to keep your mouth shut. What?
Oh, I told you guys, she is a straight shooter. She tells it like it is. I like that. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Congratulations, men. We have somebody on our side. No, I'm joking.
I have seen, and I am guilty full on of not knowing when to just stop. And I'm not saying it's like an argument or anything like that, but sometimes I don't need to say anything. And I think that goes to the part of respecting your husband. God did things intentionally, and he made Adam first, and he brought Eve from Adam. So Adam is the head of the household. Eve is walking alongside of him, not to overpower him or to make it so that she knows best. We're going to be honest. To me, she's the cause of sin. She went over and above Adam and sinned, did exactly what God said not to do. So the whole, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, being submissive, that too, women take that, they just take it wrong. I'm sorry, there's no other word for it, there's wrong. When I was reading Ephesians, because of course it's, wives, submit to your husband. Okay, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. But in verse 21, it was submit to one another out of deep respect of Christ. So if you put that, a woman submits to her husband, she's submitting to Christ. If you look at the big picture. And then I jumped into verse 22, and okay, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. How many times has it just stopped there?
That's true. I know a lot of people that get like they hang on to that one verse without looking at the entire picture of what.
And what's the end? As you do to the Lord. So if I am submitting to my husband and respecting him the way he deserves to be respected, then I am showing reverence to God. And to me, that's, take even just husband or spouse out of the picture and say, okay, if I'm respecting God, this is how I'm treating my husband. Maybe switch that a little bit. Okay, is this how I'm going to talk to God?
Ooh, man.
And that was my big thing, because I was thinking a lot about that last night, and that just kept, as you do to the Lord. Okay. So when I do that, when I disrespect him and I'm going to go one further, because then I went back to Proverb 31. And women, we do a lot. I mean, a lot. But that in turn is showing our husbands, look, we've got your back. You are the head of our household, and that's the way it should be. So I want to do everything I can to put you up here, to let everybody see you are the head of our household. And through you, God is blessing our family. And I'm not saying, a husband, you go over there and do that, and you don't come out of that room. No. That's disrespectful.
That's true.
And that is not what God has put into place.
And that's not loving your wife.
No, exactly. And wives, don't turn around and talk to your husbands like that. Don't. And especially in front of people. That is a peeve of mine, that we won't even go down that road.
Yeah, and I feel like we live in an age of social media where there's almost an intentional emasculation of men by their wives.
Absolutely.
And I don't know where that stems from, where people have this concept that a wife is allowed to be disrespectful, to almost bludgeon her man to death and still reap all the rewards that she should reap from a wife that is quote unquote submissive. Right. And Kendra, as you're well aware, is a stay-at-home mom. She homeschools our kids. And for me, the fact that she can take her energy and her time and pour that into our children to give them an education, to grow them up in reverence of the Lord, and to understand the Bible. Our daughter loves the Bible, and it's because my wife loves the Bible, right? She sees that. And the fact that my wife takes care of our home and she does all that stuff, that to me, when I walk about and I talk to people, I am so in love, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that my wife is willing to do that. Right. And I know everyone isn't able to do that, whether it's finances or that may not be someone's personality. But as her husband, I look at that and I'm like, I am so proud to be able to do whatever it takes to make sure that that woman has what she needs, and that I can show her the love. Right. Because that's a form of her respecting me, is taking care of our kids, taking care of our home. But she also doesn't bludgeon me over the head. Right. Now, when I need to be, yeah, she does. When I need to be bludgeoned over the head, that's one thing, but
still in a respectful way.
In a respectful way, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, she's willing to say, hey, Canel, I don't think that's the right thing to do, or you could get better at this. But because she's shown me respect, I can take that a little bit better. If she was the type of person that constantly berated me and treated me like trash in front of other people, I don't think I would take that feedback as well. And so I love the fact that you're saying, like, sometimes it's the idea of just saying, okay, who am I serving in this moment? Am I serving myself? Or am I serving Jesus? Right. Because serving Jesus may mean not saying anything.
Exactly.
And that goes for the men too. Like, exactly. And for us, it may be serving Jesus may mean speaking up.
Right. Right. Not being the one who is just like timid and, and nothing wrong with that at times. But God puts you at the head of the house for a reason. I mean, he designed it that way. He designed us that way. So when you talk about being a wife being submissive, it's not being degraded. It's not being, not taking a back seat to everything, because there's plenty in the Bible that women have done, and God has enabled them to do that. And then you also see the appreciation from the men in the Bible of everything the women are doing.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about that, because in Jewish culture, women didn't have as many rights as women have today. But the main thing is a woman could not be used as a witness for testimony.
Okay.
Right? That was not a thing. It had to be a man doing that. But look at what happens in the Bible. The women went to the tomb first. The women brought back the news that Jesus was no longer there.
Right.
And they were believed.
Right.
So right then and there in the Bible, it shows the power of the woman in that situation. But it was because they built that respect and that admiration for the disciples and, for the apostles rather, that their word was actually acknowledged.
Right.
If they weren't, and it wasn't their husbands, but if they weren't women that were preparing the way, laying the foundation, I don't think they would have made it into those words. I don't think Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John would have even acknowledged the fact that they were the first ones to bring the news. They would have skirt right over it.
Right.
But because Mary Magdalene and the other women were able to lay down roots in the hearts of those men and say, we are traveling with you. We're going to support you guys. We're going to be part of this ministry. Their names will be recorded and have been recorded for the rest of time. Right. And I think that's a huge thing to remember. Like, Proverbs 31 has it there, but also understanding the history behind that era of time where women weren't seen as equal partners, but somehow God still used them to bring the good news.
They were quiet. They were quietly involved. They didn't have to be that voice of, or that voice even, just that domineering voice, which it tends to get that way. It tends to, women just want that. And I don't understand why, but it's just I don't want to get off topic. The whole submission thing I did want to address because I don't want women to see it in the way, I don't want them to take it out of context. Read the Bible, read the verses, like dissect each word. One of the best connect groups we did, we literally took one scripture and dissected it word for word. And then you put in the definition where the word was. And it was eye-opening to me. So the submissive part of this with being a wife is not, how do you say this? It's not that you're not equal to your husband. You're a female.
Okay.
A man's a man, a female's a female. I'm sorry if I'm hurting anybody's feelings, but that's not an equal thing to me. You're two totally different beings.
That's true.
So going back to God's creation, he set that up in that way. He didn't pull another man from Adam. He made a woman. And that is for her to just be there with him for a companion. And also, take charge of things, absolutely, but not to subdue your husband, not to make him the lesser. That's the part that I think now, especially in today's age, that women feel a need that they have been downplayed and that their voices didn't matter for so long. So it's okay to make yourself heard and feel strongly about anything, any type of group or can't think of the word. Words are not in my head right now. But just be passionate about that. That's God gave you that passion. Women are more passionate than men. Women are more emotional, like you were saying about Kendra, and that's a known fact. But working those two together in your marriage, I'll say it again, don't feel like you have to be better than your spouse, but also don't feel like you're not as good as your spouse. So if you intentionally talk about things like that, your relationship is just going to be, it's going to go to an extreme that you never thought was possible.
I agree with that.
Thanks.
So let me ask you then.
Go ahead.
Why do you think there is so much apprehension with, and I dare say it's more of a Western thing with this traditional value stuff. Like why do you think there's so much bitterness? Maybe I use that word.
Ooh.
I hope that's the right word I'm using.
You said it now.
Do you think there's bitterness, and why do you think there's so much bitterness? And what do you see that leading to, if that is the case, with future generations of
bitterness of
from like what you were talking about, not being seen for so many years? You know, because I dare say I think about it like this, and I am definitely a big proponent of women's rights because I'm the father of a daughter, right?
Okay.
I would never want my daughter to feel like she has no opportunities. But the truth is she has plenty of opportunities. Mm-hmm. It's all about the mindset. But I do feel like, especially in America and in Western culture, there just seems to be a bitterness, even amongst young women who didn't live through the suffrage era, didn't live through some of the atrocities that happened to women in the past, and aren't living through what women in, say, Iraq, Afghanistan, those places are going through. So why do you see a sense of bitterness boiling, like coming to a head? And why do you think that is?
I do. And I think that is, I think it's a word of mouth thing, for one thing, because it was started. You know, somebody had to start this, and they did years ago. Like, well, why can't I do this if he can do this? Well, I should be able to do that because he's doing that. I don't know for that part why that even had to come about. I don't want to do a lot of things that my husband does. I don't want to work on cars, really. So I don't, I mean, as far as like where or why, that's a really good question. Thanks for asking. But I also think that things from Scripture are taken. We can't live, I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit. We can't live today like they did BC. There's no way. I mean,
you're right.
You're going to walk from where to where, for one thing, you know. I'm just you look at all of that. So you're looking at women now, and they read Scripture, and that it's almost like oh no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live like that. Okay, but at the time, that is what was required of women, or not required of women. So, but then you see Esther, and you see these women who are prominent in the Bible. So they weren't, I don't think they weren't as, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they weren't out there. They were
forceful.
Yeah, that's a good word. And maybe that's it. Women are more forceful now, and I don't know where that came from. Like, why is it that you feel the need that we have to prove something? What is there to prove? And maybe that's just me. I'm not speaking by any means for all women, but I do find it hard myself to live in today in some respect, because I don't agree with that. I am not that. I wanted to be that stay-at-home mom and have a house, and that was it. But because of things the way they have gone through the years, I had to work. So that almost made me bitter against the equal right movement, because I didn't want to do that. You put that on me, you know? So I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds here, but I'm just being truthful about myself, and I am only speaking for myself. So I guess I'm kind of bitter the opposite way. I'm bitter because I'm having to do something or have had to do something that I really never even wanted to or thought about when I was growing up. It was kind of thrown into my lap. So for me, it was kind of the opposite. So if I try to switch it back over to, you know, why women are bitter about, you know, the way things are happening now and just trying, and I think that's it. They're trying to be in a place that God didn't intend them to be.
That's heavy.
It is. I'm sorry.
That's heavy. That is heavy.
I hope I didn't open up a bucket of worms there.
Well, I know that will upset some people.
It will. It will.
And I know that some people will act like they're upset because that's hitting a nerve that they know that is true. But so let's dive into that a little bit, because this is piquing my interest.
Okay.
Because I'm just thinking of the world that my daughter's going to grow up into. And of course, she sees a traditional household.
Correct.
She sees mom at home, dad working. And she wants to be an astronaut.
Okay.
She wants to do that world. How do I, as a father, and how could Kendra kind of still institute those traditional values in her while still maintaining the idea that being a companion in her marriage is still just as important as achieving those, you know, career goals, if I'm asking that the right way. How do we balance that? Because, you know, there are some women that don't care about the career, they just want to be home. And there's the extreme of that, where there's women that don't care about the home and all they care about is their career. How do we balance that with our daughter, though, who we know that being a partner in a relationship is going to make her the happiest she can be.
Correct.
But she also has a desire to explore and do all those things.
Right.
What can we say to her?
Pray.
Okay.
No, well, I mean, you kind of answered your own question. You are showing her this is what, and I'm not saying anything about women working outside of home at all. This is you all. This is what you all have decided for your family. Kendra wants to be at home. I don't know if you want to work, but you work. So you have that traditional family. So for her, she's seeing mom is a strong woman. She and dad talk. They have conversations. You may even have arguments, but then she sees that you work them out. So then she sees how hard you work. And now she's like, I want to be an astronaut. Absolutely. If that's what you truly want to be, and God has put that in her, full on go for it. But don't use an excuse that, almost a mindset, I just want to be better than a man. Use it, God gave me this ability for the stars and the planets. I want to do something with that. I feel like he wants me to do something with that. Nurture that and see where it goes. She might change her mind and want to be a dentist in 3 months. Who knows, right? But just the whole, if you as parents wrap yourselves around their dreams and their ideas, you can still throw logic into it. If she wants to do a trampoline from here to the moon, maybe not now, but who knows in the future? You know, might be able to take a good bounce and hop on up there. I don't know. Oh, man. But if you all are instilling in her, first and foremost, scripture, and you can go through and show her, look, God says, if that is what you feel very strongly about, then he's probably put that in you. So he's not going to take that away because she's a woman. He's going to say, no, I created you to do that, regardless of your gender.
I love that. I love the fact that you said it doesn't have to be a competition.
No.
And
No.
and thinking about it, you're right. That may be where that bitterness is coming from a lot of
Now that you say that.
women nowadays, is they feel like they're competing against men when really God designed it to be a partnership regardless.
Absolutely.
That's a huge statement right there.
Yeah.
I think you might have nailed it.
Woo!
I do. So now we're going to get a little bit personal with you.
Lord.
I apologize, but I asked
Okay.
Skip this same question.
Okay.
What are some frustrating things you've experienced in marriage?
That is not right. Can I just say that? No. Frustrating things.
Sorry, Skip.
Well, yeah. One he knows of right off the bat, and didn't find this out for a while because our communication, we communicated, like the surface communication, all through the years. And you've got kids. We have 2 great boys and then 2 that, we see often, 4 altogether. And it's hard because you're more concerned about doing what they're doing. So you all's, like husband and wife, you got to make some time for one thing. So it wasn't until years later, I don't even know, the kids might have even been out of the house by now. But anyway, we're having a conversation and he, I think, just flat out asked me, have I done anything that annoys you? And I said, yes. He said, what? Like he was shocked. And I said, you scuff across the floor in your slippers. He's like, what? I said, just pick up your feet.
Oh my God.
And he said, why didn't you say anything? And I said, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And he said, so all these years you've been listening to me? I said, yes. So, but it was funny at the time. But you know him, and he is just the best human being male that I think I've ever known my entire life.
I can agree with that wholeheartedly.
And he is like, there's not things that I really can't think of anything that I don't know.
Now you're setting the bar too high for people. Come on now.
Now sometimes maybe he's too, this is going to sound really bad, too nice to me. Like sometimes I feel like I don't deserve, it's like, why aren't you mad because I just did, but whatever. He's like, well, it's okay. And I'm like,
he is probably the most balanced emotionally person I've ever met.
he really is.
I don't think I've ever seen. Now he'll get energetic or passionate about something, but it's never frustration. It's really, you're right about that. But
Right.
I didn't know that he was like that at home.
Oh, he is. What you all see is what he is at home.
Oh man.
But he is. He's just now he has worked at that a lot too. Communication thing, like I said, was not in his wheelhouse at all when we first got together. And that was very frustrating for me. And I would just explain to him, you have got to talk to me. This can't last if we don't have some kind of communication, because I know things can bother you. And we had an aha moment a long time ago, which was amazing. He screamed and scared our little dog to death. Like she hid and would not come out from underneath the bed. He was down in our basement of the little house that we lived in. So I went to the top of the steps and I said, honey, are you okay? And he came around the banister that was at the bottom of the steps. And he's like, you're right. When you yell like that, sometimes it does just make you feel better.
Oh my God.
And I about died. I'm like, okay, but can you give me a little heads up next time, But yeah, he does. He is very good with, I'm not going to let this get me. I will figure this out. And very patient. Very patient. So I think that patience just keeps him, even. He's just he fluctuates, but he is never this. He's never that. He's just like on this nice wave.
Yeah.
In Naples. We're in Naples, just cruising, you know.
I love that. And I think that that's something that drew me to him is just the idea of seeing him as that person where it's like, this is a constant.
Yes.
And I think that we need that in our lives, is just somebody who is consistent, that doesn't add or fuel to the drama, that doesn't, you know, that somebody that's like, I've been there before. I've seen that. Let me walk you through it. And he and I talked about. You
sound just like him
oh
when
my
you
gosh.
said that.
Well, I have enough
off.
conversation. Yeah, exactly. Rubbing off. But that's what our conversation was last time, was just the idea of, you know, just understanding that people have experienced the same things and sometimes far worse, but we get so caught up in our own heads, and as he said it, you know, we look down and we forget to look at the world.
Right.
And he's that for me, where he's always constantly saying, hey, Canal, pick your head up. Hey, pick your head up. I want you to see what's around you. I want you to understand that this is the path that you're walking on. And for me, I need that, right? As logical as I am, I can get so logical that I forget to pick my head up, and I can just be like, okay, I'm diving into this thing, got the blinders on. No one can tell me anything because I can't see anybody, right? And he's just so good at pulling me out of that. And I love that about that. So kudos to you for being married.
I got a great one.
Yeah. And I think that's a great lesson for both husbands and wives to understand that there's power in that.
Absolutely.
You know, there's power in just being consistent with how we approach things, and power in understanding. And you know, you almost talked about this for the wife, like a wife that is like that, oh my gosh, a husband would run through a brick wall for that woman, right? Like, because he knows that no matter what happens, she has his back.
Exactly.
And same thing for a wife with a husband. If my wife knows that I am very consistent in how I approach things, I'm patient, I don't let things get to me, she knows, okay, come whatever in high water, my husband's always going to show up. He's always going to show up, and he's always going to be at his optimum.
And your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
I mean, you're rooting for your spouse. You want this to be, you know, together. That's the whole idea of marriage. You're together, not you figuring things out on your own and she's figuring things out on her own. You figure them out together. And that was one thing with Skip and I. He has taught me so much. And he turns around and says that I've helped him, which I don't see it, but anyway. But I do see it when I look at it. And he acknowledges that. And that's a thing for me, like words of affirmation is part of my wheelhouse. He knows that about me. Now, he's not just going to say it just to say it and get brownie points. He really means it. Like, he's like, you know what? I really appreciate you, you know, doing all of my laundry today because I was going to do it when I got home. And I'm like, oh, you're welcome.
That's
you know?
awesome. And
then the same with him. He knows, and this is an addiction with me, but I love having the bed made. Always have, ever since I was a kid. My dad was in the Navy. It's what you did. You don't come out of your room until your bed's made. And it just has been all my life. So he knows how much that means to me. I know it sounds weird, but if he's the last one out of bed, he makes the bed. And if I'm already gone, I come home and the bed's made. And it's a happy for me. So it's like those little intricate things, when you find those out about each other, and it's awesome because it makes me happy. And in turn, he's happy because I'm happy. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay. So we reciprocate that with each other. And that's what makes our marriage work. I mean, it really does.
It's funny because Skip, and you haven't seen my interview with Skip yet.
No.
But he mentioned the same thing about you liking the bed made.
Are you serious?
He did. So
Great.
I gotta say, it matches up perfectly.
Okay.
It matches up perfectly. And I've actually started doing that. Well, we always make up the bed, Kendra and I,
Right.
but it's usually last one out does it. But I've been making a conscious effort even if she's the last one out of bed, if it's not made, for me to make it up even before I leave. So,
look at you.
So I'm trying. I'm trying that technique.
You're succeeding.
Yes, I'm succeeding at it.
Go.
And I gotta say, it's a minute and a half of my time. But if I can alleviate something from my wife and bring her joy at the same time, why wouldn't I do it?
Exactly.
And I love that Skip talks about it in that way. It's like, if I can do something that's 5 minutes out of my time to bring a day of joy to my wife, why wouldn't I do it?
And it should be the same with wives. Don't just take everything that your husband has to give. Give that back to him. You find out that, okay, if he likes having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, hey, why not go out there if he's in the bathroom or whatever, go out there and make him a cup of coffee. And you will be amazed at how little things like that are just, and don't take it for granted. And don't ever, come back on, well, you made my coffee yesterday. Why didn't you make it today?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be thankful for that. And if it only happens the one time, it made him happy that morning. And I guarantee you then the day is starting out better. The day will go better, And then when you come home, hopefully you don't have a bad day. You come home and just those little things doing for each other is just massive. And being able to talk to each other about things if they're not that great. And even when they are, talk about those awesome things. Guess what happened today? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have that excitement when they come home. Ask each other about your day. Don't, oh, oh, really? None of that. Like really, really listen to each other.
I like that. You're almost, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're almost taking every single day, every single opportunity as its own gift.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's powerful. That is powerful. So let's flip that on its head for a second, shall we?
Why not?
These are all good things. What does a wife do, or how should a wife respond to a husband that is less than generous with their time, even if she's doing all of these things?
Wow. You want me to go there? No, I'm just kidding.
I do. This is uncuffed.
It's uncuffed.
So
there you go.
We're unshackling people from the norms.
Okay. That is wow, that's a really good question. You don't want to ask somebody else? No. Okay. Ask me one more time. Say it again.
All right. How should a wife respond to a husband that is less than generous with his time, even if she's doing all of these things?
How should she respond? That's the good part. Okay. Well,
response gives a choice.
Yes, it does. So with that word, choice, you have to go back to the Lord. Okay? Is God just going to write you off because you didn't continue to talk to me nicely, or you didn't pick up your clothes like you have been for 4 days, or boy, you're just not, your words are just not great like they were a month ago or something like that? Is he changing his decision that he saved me?
No.
So he is there through it all, no matter what. I believe that a wife should be the same way. Absolutely, you are not going to agree. You are not going to be happy with the way things are going. But if you take yourself out of it, look at God's picture for you and say, okay, this is your husband. You married him, better or worse. If you truly believe that, then you stick it out and I don't want to say deal with it, because that just sounds like you're just okay with it. You're not okay with it. So You have to have conversations. And I would hope that it would change after a while, and that, you know, that the conversations would make your spouse aware, or your husband, since we're talking wives to husband. I don't know off the top of my head of anyone personally that it hasn't worked for. It may be years, but if you are walking with Christ daily and you are relying on him and then praying, not a prayer of change this man, because I can't deal with this anymore. Change me. What needs to be changed in me? Let him see you through me.
I love that.
Then it falls into place where God knows. You could have a husband that's going to be against it from till the time you die, but you were steady, you believed in your husband, and that's God-given, because that's what he wants you to do.
It almost sounds like you're saying that our marriages are a ministry.
Well, yeah, don't you feel that way?
I kind of do.
Yeah.
I do.
Absolutely. From day one, you're ministering even before you get married, is the way I look at it. And then you bring in kids and you're ministering to them. I mean, it's just continual, and it is continual, because then it's just not your household. Your relationship outside of a church or outside of at a restaurant, you're ministering to everybody around you.
Ooh, that's good. And, you know, again, I'm just thinking, you have adult kids, and I'm thinking from future tense. As a wife that can minister to her husband and kids that way, you're also ministering to your kids' future relationships,
Absolutely.
right? And you can attest to that because all of your kids are married now, right? All 4 of them. So
one of them is engaged.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for the wedding.
Courtship.
But yes.
Yeah. So 3 out of the 4
Yes.
are married.
Yes.
And I'm guessing you're seeing the ramifications or benefits of how you and Skip
Yes.
treated each other.
Yes.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh gosh, it's just so, I mean, there's a little bit of pride there, because when you see fruit like that, it's just, when you can see it, we have, and everybody says this, but we have 4 of the best kids. I mean, they are, and they have a relationship with God. And that is from, especially Skip. He is the head of the household, and he has brought that and taught that in our family. But he didn't diminish me either. He didn't belittle me, nothing. I was there alongside of. I definitely had input into how we raised the kids. We were on the same page. We made that, that was a definite when we first, got together. And it was, it wasn't really like purposeful, but it was not like, this is what we're going to do, A, B, C. It was, this is what we're going to do.
Oh.
And then let's make sure that they see that, but just on a daily basis. So it was everyday things. Oh, absolutely. I got mad one time. Well, probably more times. But one time I cursed. And Trey was with me, our youngest. And he was like, I'm telling Daddy on you. And I'm like, oh, shoot. But it was, and with that, you tend to start watching, especially when you have kids. You start watching more of how you talk and what you're saying to each other, to them, to people around you. Because that's, first and foremost, it has to be you and him before anybody else. But then if you're doing this the way he wants you to, then this with your spouse, in my case with my husband, then that should be almost natural. And I don't want to say easy, because marriage is not easy. It is a work in progress, absolutely. But if you do it the way Scripture says, it makes sense. It really does. You're not butting the system, if that's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
You start going against what is proven, then you're just opening yourself up for anxiety and just bleh, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something that Kendra and I'm happy to say we didn't see marriage as the target. We saw eternity as the target. And that changes the way that we look at situations within our marriage. We've both said at the onset that divorce was not on the table.
Okay.
Never going to be on the table. Because when you make those vows, you're literally saying to the person, I'm going to accept you for every piece of baggage you bring in. So that can't be, oh my gosh, now that this person annoys me or I'm tired of this habit they have, that I'm just going to cast them aside. That's not what marriage is. So I think a lot of people see marriage as a goal. They don't see eternity as a goal. And it's like, if I were to mistreat my wife or divorce my wife, then I could create a speed bump, a hill, a mountain for my daughter and my son, because now they aren't going to understand what a lifelong commitment looks like.
Correct.
They aren't going to be able to take a spiritual concept and see it in a natural realm, and that might cause them some issues down the road as well. So Kendra and I are very aware of the need to constantly show our kids, yes, mommy and daddy may argue, but we forgive each other. Mommy and daddy are able to playfully banter with each other. We're able to wrestle. We're able to do whatever it is. And at the end of the day, we're also able to show them we love Jesus. And it's because we love Jesus that we're not giving up on each other. It's because we love Jesus that marriage is not the destination. We are looking at it from a far deeper, far further reaching aspect. And I'm glad that God put her in my life with the same ideals in that way, right? Because I came from a broken family. Her parents are in their late 70s, and they've been married for 50 something years. So for her, it was a lot easier, I think, to understand that concept. But for me, luckily my mom is a prayer warrior. So she raised me in a way to understand, like, the goal is not to get married. The goal is eternity, and understanding how to love your spouse through thick and thin. Even though she didn't receive that kind of thing. So yeah, I just think that when people see it that way, they don't see marriage as the destination. They see beyond that and what their marriage can do, what can be expanded upon from that marriage. I think we start to see marriage in a different light. And I'm happy to say that, you and Skip being our sort of my adopted spiritual parents, I'm like, I can always have a beacon where I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling a certain way, or if I'm losing sight of why I'm married in the first place, I can always come to you. I can always go to Skip and say, am I thinking about this the right way? Am I, and I love the fact that you and he are willing to say, Cannell, you're being an idiot.
And we have.
You have. And I can admit that, but you know that I don't take it in a defensive way. I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing it the right way. Yeah, I haven't told Kendra I love her enough, or I haven't told her whatever, or I haven't done this enough. Like, I'm willing to take that feedback because I understand that the way I treat my wife has a rippling effect across generations.
That's good.
And if I'm going to be the one in my family, in my lineage, that breaks that generational curse of divorce and mistrust and all these things, then I need to be aware at all times how I am treating my wife and how that's going to affect our children and their children and their children's children, because I don't want the blessing of God to be hindered
Right.
by my behavior and
Right.
my actions. So I love the fact that, like I said, that I can lean on you two
Mm-hmm.
and just say, I said this or I did this. Am I wrong here? And 9 times out of 10, I'm wrong. So I shouldn't have recorded that, because
No,
now
you
Kendra's gonna hold that over my head. She's gonna be like, I told you.
Repeat,
Yeah,
repeat.
exactly. She's just gonna loop that last 30 seconds and then hold it against me.
Yes.
Anytime we have an argument, she's gonna be like, hold up,
wait
let
a
me play this back. Yeah, but I do. I'm so appreciative of that. And I think that every single couple needs that. We need another couple or two that we are just looking at and saying, like, pull us along with you, guide us, because we need that. And too often I see couples getting advice from people that have either been married the same amount of time or less. And I'm like, there is no
Why?
there's no reason. I am not. My wife and I should never get advice from people that have been married for 2 years, right? like
Yeah, especially not less than what you've been
yes.
married. I mean, that's
or
no.
even 10 or 11 like we are. I'm like, there's nothing they can tell us that is going to say we've been through that.
Right.
Right? I get that different situations happen, but they don't have enough longevity to be like, listen, this is what this next decade it might bring you. This is how you deal with this. You know, like, you and Skip dealt with cancer. You've dealt with all these other things. We haven't dealt with that, but we can look to that and be like, how did they make it through that? How did they get through that? How did they get their kids through the teenage years? How did they get through, kids having kids out of wedlock? How did they do all these things that we have yet to get to? That's why we need people that have gone
That's
through it.
awesome. And I'll be honest. I mean, Skip and I. Now we have good families. My family, I knew I could talk to my dad. So I did have that. I wish I had him longer to talk to, because now I'm older. So it was more of a natural, like I didn't really have to work at I had to work at how I communicated, because like I said, sometimes it doesn't come out so good. But learning from that, learning that it's okay to say you're sorry, even as an adult. That is not so easy for people. My dad never did.
Really?
He was a great dad, but he was never sorry. He would put it back at you like, well, if you wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have yelled. So that was one thing I was specific about when Skip and I started having children. It was, if I'm wrong, my kids are going to know I'm wrong. I'm not going to be happy to say it, but it's amazing. After the first time you say it, it literally becomes easier. And then they see, oh, mom's not always right. Dad's not always right. They make mistakes. So showing them that too. And then in a marriage, it's the same thing. He's not always right. Most of the time he is, but he's not always. And I'm not. I know that. But we can admit that to each other. Shoot, that was dumb. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said it that way. And now that it's part of who we are as a couple, it's easy. Like, you don't have to, oh gosh, I got to apologize. I don't want to apologize. You're not upsetting yourself about it. It is just, no, okay, I was wrong. And then you go and you say, I was wrong. And that's, I know, it can be hard.
It can be.
It can be. Especially you don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's a good point for people to understand. So would that be, if you were to like encompass everything we've talked about today into one phrase or one idea, what would you want people to walk away with understanding about marriage?
About marriage, understand.
Specifically, wives obeying your own husbands, or submitting to your own husbands, I'd say, since that is the audience we're talking about. Right?
Got you. Okay. One thing to walk away, huh? I would just have to say, be intentional. Be intentional about, it's a lot, but everything. If you're intentional with your relationship with Christ, if you're intentional with speaking to your husband, if you're intentional with how you raise your kids, every aspect of yourself, especially as a wife, if you are intentional about making sure the way you honor your husband is the way you would honor God, that would be it. That would just be intentional in honoring God. And then everything from there should flow, not easy, but it should flow into place. Does that help?
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
So I will say this. The whole point of the Uncuffed podcast is to help people become whole leaders, right?
Okay.
Leaders at work, leaders at home, leaders, in their ministries or church or whatever it is. But that begins at home, right? So the idea of talking about being a better spouse has everything to do with being a better leader. If we cannot be leaders at home, then we are frauds outside of that. And yes, for ladies, it may seem like the idea of submission is counterintuitive to being a leader, but as my amazing mom here says, that's how you lead. You are being an accompaniment, and you can lead from the side.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
The idea there is, don't feel like it's a battle for power,
Right.
because everybody loses. No one has power if everyone's battling for it. So husbands, remember to love your wives with everything.
Yes.
Wives, remember submission is not a dirty word.
It is not.
It simply means respect.
Yes.
And if the wife can respect the husband and the husband can love his wife with everything they have, and everything points towards Jesus.
Yes.
Look out, world.
Yes.
Because here comes a generation of people that will truly change the dynamic of our culture. Because we know that our culture right now in the U.S. is deteriorating.
Yes, it is.
So it's incumbent upon us as leaders to change that narrative, to grow a generation of people that understand that marriage is a gift, it is a ministry, it is work, and it takes submission and it takes love in order to execute. So Donna, thank you. I am so grateful to have you on.
You're very welcome.
And I know this was your first podcast experience, just like Skip. So the fact that you made it through, you made it to the end, is awesome. And I dearly hope you'll let me have you on again, because
you're pushing it, buddy. We'll see.
Yes, we'll see. See, she said that in love. But Uncuffed family, thank you so much for tuning in. However you're listening, wherever you're listening from, don't forget to tune in next time for episode 7. I hope to have our lead pastor on.
Oh, shoot.
Pastor Chris Jones, talking about expanding our capacity. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. Okay. It may only last 5 minutes. So this is Uncuffed, and I will see you next time.
Bye.